now in social media, you're competing against, you're interrupting somebody's viewing experience. So if you're watching like a 1 minute video and suddenly, 15 seconds in, you're hit with a commercial that's 30 seconds long, that's going to make
Right.
people maybe not like your brand so much.
Welcome. My name is Chris, and this is the Solstice podcast where we talk about small business, technology, and web development. If you enjoy the show, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment as a sacrifice to the algorithm. And without further ado, here's the episode. Welcome, everybody, to the Solstice podcast with my amazing guests today, John and Sonia from Faux Media. Guys, awesome to have you here. We just met not too long ago over at the Morris County Chamber of Commerce. And I was really excited to kind of understand a little bit about what you guys did. Obviously, you guys do, video media production, and I'm sure that's just scratching the surface. So I kind of wanted to give people a chance to get to know you. And if you could kind of explain a little bit about yourselves, maybe, and then also about Faux Media Productions as well.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm John T. Fisher, and I have a background in filmmaking. And I started working with Sonia probably around 7 or 8 years ago now at this point. And, in 2017, I started Faux Media Productions as an official business to, showcase films of various, genre and content, and as well as offer a kind of a mobile video production studio. And Sonia and I have worked on and off together for years now at this point. But yeah, so we can kind of do anything in a film video capacity.
Awesome. Sonia, you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. So, right. So John and I have been working together for a while, and it's really interesting. We both come from backgrounds in film and media and did that, college, post-college. And so it's really interesting how to kind of combine the creative aspect and kind of merge that into like doing corporate videos, all sorts of different things. So it's been definitely an interesting journey and something where every different project is unique. And that's a great thing about video. But yeah, we know each other for a while, and it's been interesting to see how our styles have kind of evolved to meet the needs of different types of clients.
Yeah, that makes sense. And do you guys like focus on different parts of the business?
Yeah, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think the great thing about the two of us working together is we both can do all of it.
Oh, nice! Wow.
So, I mean, for many years, I was more a hired gun for Sonia, and I would come and I would, shoot a lot of stuff for her and she would edit it. And, more recently, I was shooting stuff on my own and sending stuff to her to edit. But there's shoots where we've both been running camera, and, we're versatile like that. So I think it's a great combo.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you guys have started doing more like some more like video media for businesses and all that, or corporate media stuff. And how are they can you tell me a little bit about how these businesses are actually using your services? Because I'm sure they could use it in a lot of different ways, but I'm sure there's some that maybe are more popular, or maybe you guys have some opinions about what's the best use for your skills.
Right. So I think it kind of really depends on the client and what industry they're in, because there's so many different ways you can use video. I mean, you can hire people like us to, bring in all the fancy equipment, the lights and everything. And then, of course, we're also seeing within the last, 5-10 years, such an explosion of just, user-generated content where people are just picking up their cell phones. We were just talking about this earlier, how powerful the resolution is with phones. So there's definitely room for both of those approaches and those styles, but it really depends on kind of who your audience is and where you're posting it, and kind of what your like the personality of the company or business is, because something might call for something that's a little more, intimate cell phone versus maybe something that's, very corporate where you need to bring in the whole crew, and a cell phone video is maybe not appropriate for that particular um, type of client. So there's a mix. Yeah, there's a mix.
Yeah, I'm wondering because you can make different kinds of videos in all different kinds of ways. And I'm wondering like what the format is a lot of times because I see the way I see videos, it's coming more from the web development perspective, but I always see clients who are interested in like, oh, I want like a video on like the first part of my website, like at the very top. And like they're not like stories. They're not they're very like disjointed. It kind of, I guess the idea is to give people an idea of what their business is like. But I wonder, like for a small business, like you could say like a cafe or something like that. What would be even the purpose of a video like that for someone in a business like that?
I mean, I would say in any, for something like that, but in any business in general, if you're using, I mean, whether it be video or still photography or whatever, I mean, uh, your your website or whatever the outlet is that you're using to promote your business, you want it to showcase whatever it is you do, and ideally and hopefully whatever sets you apart from every other 8 million coffee places there are. I mean, video photography and things like that, I mean, it's a great way to do that because you know people respond to images a lot more than, let's say, a bunch of text on the screen, obviously. But video is great because it's interactive. I'd say the web, the speed of the web and everything, where we're at in this day and age, you can have video on your main page, auto playing or whatever when you load a site, and it not be an issue. Where back in the day, it was like, it was almost like like a grabbing the third rail. You had a video on your front page because
Yeah.
someone loads a website and it's like, oh, video can't load, and there's all the
Or
lag.
you get the little circle, you get the circle
Exactly. And they're like, well,
loading.
I don't know what their product is, or whether, so I can't use this website, or Flash isn't working, or
Yeah.
so
And you guys are bringing up like the like that phones are now like our cameras in a way for like
yeah.
most people. And yeah, it's true. I guess like that's like a big thing, but I feel like the storytelling element is still like a really big component that would be, I feel like it would just be very hard to replace or to get from AI. I do it a
Absolutely.
little bit, for example, like I'll give an example of where it's kind of working. Like with what I'm using now, it's called Riverside FM, and that's what I use for the podcast. And it's able to kind of like snippet chunks of the conversation and create like a coherent sort of, storyline, but it's not like perfect. And there's like a lot of editing that goes on, and you
Mhm.
realize that like the tone's not quite there. And like I remember the conversation, and that's not where I would have started it. But and yeah, like I feel like story is like such a big component still of video now, and it's yeah, I guess like that's something that we won't be able to replace for a little while, right?
Certainly not with the, I mean, AI stuff. It, while scary in some capacity, is still very much in its infancy. But for things like what you're describing, as far as like making a workflow faster and things like that, I mean, I think that's incredible. Um, but yeah, uh, the human emotional element, if you will, of storytelling, I don't know if that's ever something that it'll ever be able to tap into. And that makes perfect sense of what you're describing, of like, I don't know if I would have started, I don't know if I would have started this story here. I don't know if this thing understands. Um,
Yeah.
but as far as like finding areas of dialogue or finding whatever just to make the workflow faster, I mean, I think that's incredible.
Do you feel like media is kind of changing a little bit? Because I was watching some video a little while ago and it was talking about how like your mic is so much more important than your video. And that's why I bought this thing actually, the Rode Go mic. I wonder if you guys feel like audio is becoming more important now, or if there was like ever a relationship where they kind of like switched or something like that.
Um, So I think you can argue either point. Um, because a cheap video is going to cheapen everything. Doesn't matter if your audio is crystal clear, but the same thing is vice versa. Um, if you have a glorious picture, but the sound, I've seen plenty of commercials and like small business commercials where, like obviously the videographer did some nice, swooping stuff. It looks pretty or whatever, but they got a guy on the mic and it's peaking and the audio sounds just awful. And it's like that, it cheapens everything. So they're both very important, but it's interesting because from a filmmaking perspective, it's a goal to capture good, clean audio, but that's absolutely secondary in like filmmaking because it's like you have to get the image, you have to get the shot, and it doesn't matter if the shot. It doesn't matter if you didn't record any sound and the shot is perfect, because you can create it later in post production, and that's most of the time that's what a lot of stuff they do. The main goal, this is common knowledge to a lot of people, but not also that. The main goal on a set, if it's like a narrative film piece or whatever, and you're shooting dialogue like in a scene, the goal is to capture the dialogue. All the other stuff they add in later. If you get good crisp dialogue, like that's the goal. But even
Oh,
then,
wow.
you have something going on in the background, or you're shooting, on a city street or something. You got jackhammers going and whatnot. So a lot of times they have to replace that dialogue anyway. But in an interview setting, you don't have a good mic. You toast, and that. So they both, and the
I'd agree.
irony of this is I'm speaking to you through my camera phone right now. So like, hopefully, I have no idea what I sound like. This phone's mic might sound atrocious, and
No, it doesn't
I
sound
could be
bad.
making my point.
It doesn't sound bad. And actually, this is yeah, it's a good point, actually. I feel like it makes a bit of a difference, but it's like you're saying, like it depends on the format that's happening. Like if someone were to just to be
Exactly.
listening to this, then I guess, yeah, it would make more sense. And I feel like there's more different kinds of media too now. Like, because there's the podcast now, and there's like short form videos, and there's just like all this stuff now that didn't maybe exist. But yeah, the cool thing is actually this can kind of modify the audio a little bit. So in post production, it's like you're saying, I go in and I check the audio and I can kind of level it out. So if my voice isn't like too high, or you guys sound a little bit more clear and all that. So
Does that record each of us on separate tracks?
yeah, it does actually. Yeah. It
All right.
separates the tracks. Yeah, I
All right.
know. Okay, good.
There's
I'm
the
getting your I'm
there it
getting your
is.
approval. This is good.
There's that AI.
Yeah, if I'm getting your guys' nod of approval, then it's like, yes, this is
Yeah,
worth
that's
it.
cool. Yeah, if it's all together, then that could be a nightmare.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Well, I actually saw something that I thought was really cool, and because I was going through your guys' website, and I was like, oh man, John started out like loving Star Wars, and I wanted to ask, like, and actually for Sonia too, do you guys have a favorite Star Wars movie, and why is it your favorite?
Okay, so
You want to go first, John?
yeah, so yeah, I could have an entire year's worth of podcast on this topic, but yeah, so Return of the Jedi is not only my favorite Star Wars movie, but it's my favorite movie of all time because that was as a young kid, I saw that and it blew my mind. It piqued my imagination beyond what I could even comprehend at that point. Um, and like it just made me want to know everything about that universe. But then also, as I got a little older and I understood that, like, they didn't go to outer space to film the space battles and things like that. When I got a little bit older and I understood, I got like one of those, like, it was like a making of behind the scenes type video. They showed a lot of like the special effects and stuff like that. And that was another thing that like kind of blew my mind, and like the filmmaking process of it. So just uh, as it being like an inciting incident like that, that would be, my favorite of the movies and my favorite movie of all time based on that. Having said that, I wouldn't even say though that it's the best Star Wars movie, but it's still my favorite, if that makes sense.
Okay. And what would be the best Star Wars movie then?
Um, I mean, you could make arguments about. I mean, a lot of people say Empire, and I would agree on a technical level from start to finish. It's pretty incredible. But the original Star Wars from '77, A New Hope, that was lightning in a bottle. Um, and you could make an argument for either of those being the best because again, it's the first thing. If you didn't have it, you couldn't have anything that came after it. Um, the ingenuity of how they made it is just incredible, and it's really high scale, low budget filmmaking. They used everything that they had and stretched it. There's like sets and stuff and models that they reused in scenes later. Uh there's a part, again, I could go on forever about this, but a real quick example. There's a part where
Yeah,
like
yeah, please.
there's a set piece I know where like Obi-Wan Kenobi is like crossing this thing to turn off the tractor beam of the Death Star, and there's like these big kind of like column things that are part of the set. And they're literally the same exact things in the beginning of the movie when Princess Leia is about to like put the little disc in R2D2. Uh, they're literally the same things that she kind of comes out behind and like peers out. They're like the same
Oh,
exact set
wow.
pieces, but they're on their side. It's just like, you just switch this stuff
Right.
around. And the same thing with the space, like the spaceship in the beginning, like the where Darth Vader comes through the hallway of the ship and everything. Like I think they made like a couple angles of the hallway, and they just like, you just change the people around and reshoot the other angle and stuff. And it was just like, so it looks like it's endless, but it's just the same thing over and over. So that kind of stuff is incredible.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
What about
anyway,
you, Sonia?
Yeah. I love that. I actually didn't know that. So this is great. John's going to be my source of all Star Wars knowledge and trivia and behind the scenes because I love stuff like that.
giant nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all kind of probably fall into that category.
It's my knee-jerk reaction is The Empire Strikes Back, and I think of course, people have written about that and why it's the greatest and all of that. And um, for me, like a character development is really, really important. Like that's what'll ruin once great television shows for me if the characters do something that doesn't make sense within their character universe or their character traits. Um, so like the end of the film, of course, it's very iconic. It's it's something that's funny in the United States. Maybe not everyone is familiar with like the Old Testament or the New Testament, but everybody knows like certain parts of Star Wars that just stick out culturally. So I don't know what that says about
Yeah.
about us or the world, but in any case, it's just so iconic and just goes back to what the studies of, in literature, the idea of good versus evil and what exists inside of us. And can you start off good and then become evil, or can you start, be evil and then revert back to good? So it kind of really pokes at that. And I think that's so powerful. Just on like a character, human nature development aspect. And also, of course, with Yoda, do or do not, there is no try. That's just such a great motivational quote just for everyday life and, business and personal. So I'd say The Empire Strikes Back.
I mean,
Okay.
solid. I mean, you can.
I'm a big Empire fan, but I like it's kind of like what you were saying, Sonia. I really like the story. I feel like as a solo film, it kind of just holds up on its own. And I think it's just there's never a moment where you're like, oh, why did that person do that, or that didn't make sense. And like there's no like weird there's no questioning what's happening. Like everything is like consistent, I guess, within the story. So I like that a lot about it.
Yeah.
So that's why I like Empire. But yeah, I'm sad to see that they made the new ones and they just like, oh God, they're just like nails on a chalkboard. The
We could do a whole
2014 one wasn't that
podcast on
bad.
that too.
Yeah, yeah. The first one wasn't terrible, but then I felt like it just something happened. They shot themselves in the foot like so hard.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I could talk about this endlessly. That the 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 biggest issue that I have with like the new with the and like I mean I like like everything, you know, uh within the universe in some capacity, you know. I the more, if there's more, I'm happy that there's more. So that's a cool thing. But with the more recent trilogy, the biggest issue was just removing yourself and just as a casual viewer of like three movies together. Uh, you know, they clearly didn't have it planned out from the go, like where they were going with it. And I mean, they had to
Yeah,
course correct a lot with the last one because obviously you lose, you know, you lose one of your main actors. So I mean that, you know, what do you do there? I can't even imagine. But yeah, I mean, you know, there's merit in all of it, but there's flaws in, you know, a lot of there's flaw. You can find flaws in anything, you know.
no, that's an interesting
Yeah.
take. I mean,
So
yeah, there's something cool about it, like that they were able to do it at all.
yeah,
I guess there's that upside, you know.
but you know, kids though, kids that went to the theater in 2015 and throughout and saw those ones as their first ones, you know, like that's their Star Wars now. And that's going to be, you won't be able to tell them any different. And the kids that grew up in 99, you know, with the prequels, like that's their Star Wars. And
Right.
that's why there's a lot more, there was like backlash from a lot of like, you know, older fans when those came out. Cause it's like, this isn't what my idea was of what I thought it was going to be.
Right,
You know,
right.
which is, you know, fair. You know, you can have your feelings about it or whatever, but it's like, this is the story, so you accept it or
Yeah.
whatever. But like the kids that grew up with that, like that's their Star Wars, and that's, you know, they're gonna watch that before the other ones. So I mean, you know,
Yeah.
That's
That's a
it's
really
all
true.
good point.
subjective.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
there's
think
like
it,
a lot of like old IPs, right, that they're like bringing back, and people
Yeah,
say the same thing about that.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And I think it speaks to a great thing about how context is so important. Like you were saying that for kids who don't understand the context, it's just a movie that they're seeing for the first time. So if it stands up on its own just as being a single movie, then that's
Yeah.
great. It's for the people who understand the entire context and how it fits in and have something to compare it to,
Hmm.
then that's how it gets better or worse than. Which kind of, I guess, to tie back into like what John and I do with video production, like with video on your website, does it add something that the rest of your website isn't already adding in a better way? And if it can add some element that you're not getting in another part of your website, then that's great. But if it's somehow distracting or taking away or um, dimming the light of the rest of your content, then maybe you shouldn't have video on your website. But if it's something that can really amplify and, you know, help boost within that specific context, then that's great. But yeah, context, very important. So it's
Absolutely.
in relation to everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. Have you guys like ventured into the world of like social media at all?
Yeah, yeah, we've done a little bit of that.
Okay. I don't mean like for like as a service necessarily. I just mean like if you guys have been like posting stuff maybe on your website or on like other platforms. It's just so ubiquitous now. I feel like it's hard to get away from.
It's interesting. It used to be like a hard time convincing businesses to even use video because it was so new, or to even use social media, which to some businesses still is a new is a new thing. Um, but you know, it's interesting because there didn't really used to be a lot of video on things like LinkedIn, etc. And now it's kind of you're fighting against now that there's so much video. It's almost like how do you get away from video? If everyone's making video,
Yeah.
how do you make
Yeah.
your video stand out? Whether you're an individual trying to just do it for fun personally, or trying to do it to like promote your business. And I think that's where like context and really kind of deep diving into what makes you different and what you want to accomplish is really, really an important conversation to have with yourself or with a, video consultant. But yeah, it's almost like there's too much video. But then it's kind of like, well, why is that? And what videos are really popular? As sometimes it's a head scratcher that you'll see, businesses that invest a lot of time and money and energy into making a beautiful, looking great sounding video and posts on social media, but then a video that someone took with their cell phone of their cat. Taking a nap in a sunspot will get like 12 million views, and your
Yeah.
high-end video will get like 2 views.
What is that?
It's an interesting, different, changing times for sure.
Yeah.
I wonder if that talks about I'm not sure how to phrase it, but it's like different consumers for different sort of things. Because the cat video is like, it's almost like junk food. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe people are in the mood for that sometimes, but I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, context is very important when you think of like television commercials. It's like, the person's locked in, they can't leave their TV. Now it's different because you can, streaming services, you can just pay to not have ads. But back in the day when you were sitting in front of your TV, if you had a commercial for your business, you knew the audience was captive. Like, yes, maybe they could go to the kitchen, make themselves a sandwich and
Yeah.
miss your commercial, but you had like 30 seconds where you could tell any story in any method that you wanted to, or you could do something with like characters and, Folgers, or you think of like really iconic commercials from like the 90s or the 80s or early 2000s or something. And now in social media, you're interrupting somebody's viewing experience that's already consuming stuff that's very short. So to like, if you're watching like a 1-minute video and suddenly 15 seconds in, you're hit with a commercial that's 30 seconds long. That's going to make people maybe not like your brand so much, especially if it keeps popping up a lot.
You might leave immediately.
Right. So it's a whole different approach. You have to go in with the idea that you're interrupting someone's experience. So you better say something and show something really interesting really fast to make it worth interrupting their downtime, especially with social media. It's people's downtime usually. So yeah, different context, different approach.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, it's like maybe you have to like hide your ads or something, like like product placements. I don't know. Who knows what the future is with AI? It'll be like an ad somehow hidden into the video or something like that.
True. With the technology, it all might change next week. This might all be irrelevant.
It's gonna be direct
By the
stream.
time this airs, yeah.
I heard like a really interesting thing from there's like content creators now that are they're interesting in the sense that they talk about different platforms for different things. Like me and my wife, we decided to go with LinkedIn because we thought more of our client base would be in LinkedIn. And the idea is like, well, people use different platforms for different things. So it's like TikTok, it's like maybe I could get some face, like people would recognize my face if I was on there talking about some stuff, but it wouldn't be for any sort of in-depth understanding of like what we do or anything about like how we could, there's no relationship almost. It's just like a quick, this is a human, I know who this person is. And then like you go to like YouTube where the videos are slightly longer. And that's where you could kind of maybe talk a little bit longer about certain topics. And then you have like LinkedIn where it's like scripts. You just have like a whole text blog about, about what it is that you do, or like something that's like super dry and that's fine for that context. But yeah, we're talking about like the views that you might get on a video, and like it might all just be like a vanity metric at the end of the day. Just something that I'm kind of leaning towards a little bit more and more now. And I feel like search engines now are just getting so ridiculously good that even if you have like 1,000 followers or something like that, if they're like really hardcore and they really like what you do, and they want to pay for your services, that might be enough actually for whatever it is, whatever service that you provide, which is, I feel like, a big difference from how it used to be, at least with social media. Yeah.
Right. That's true. With the rise of AI and search engines being so powerful that even if you do post something that's longer, you can add in chapter markers and things. And like Google will pick that right up if you're searching for like a how to do something. The way that that's changed too is really interesting. And it's so easy. It's much easier to kind of hunt down a brand or an individual across the internet and have AI or even I was using Chat GPT the other day. I was asking, like, find me, blah, 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 and it was able to search all across Instagram, people's personal Instagram
Wow.
profiles and their YouTube channels and their website and just like everything. It didn't show me their home address, but I'm sure if I type that in, it could
Yeah,
pinpoint where they are right now and what they're doing and have a camera
probably.
follow them from a
One
satellite or something like that.
one
But
click away.
one click,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. It's a little scary, which I guess um, makes the importance of, creating content that's it doesn't have to be, I don't think, perfect anymore, but as long as it's not offensive. I'd say that's that's the hardest thing
Not
there's a lot of
offensively
pressure
bad.
on right, making things look great and sound great and have, great story, etc. But I think the as long as you post something that's because you can't delete things anymore from the internet. Once they're there, they're there forever and findable forever. So
Yeah.
I think
The
that takes
internet
some of the
is
pressure,
forever.
Yeah, internet
Yeah.
is forever. It used to be diamonds are forever, now the internet is forever.
The internet.
Forever
Hey,
and
I
ever and
was
ever.
I was hoping to ask because we kind of got into John's backstory, kind of a little bit about where he came from. Sonia, do you want to go over a little bit about your backstory? Have you always been working in film, or did you come maybe from another industry? How did that uh, go for you?
Sure, sure. So my background is in film and media production. That's what I studied and majored in college. And to go even further back than that, I've always loved writing and storytelling. Before I knew how to write, I used to tell stories by drawing pictures. Uh, and so I've always loved that. In college, I actually wanted to be pre-med, and then took a film course just for the heck of it, my freshman winter, and was like, oh, that science is going completely out the window. It's like, oh, I
Oh
can,
wow.
make a living telling stories. Like, I love this. So, and that was goodbye. Yeah, right.
How did your
Depends
parents
on
feel
the
about
weather.
that?
It depends on what the weather is or how the moon is moving or whatever other
Right.
factors that make that true. But yeah, I ended up majoring in that. And then right after college, went and just started working on like film and television sets and indie films and commercials and things. And I got a little bit, to be honest, exhausted with the commute going into Manhattan or deep into Brooklyn, coming all the way from New Jersey. That started to wear me down a little bit, and ended up working in the nonprofit realm for a nonprofit news uh, company that was making short form videos about arts and culture in New Jersey. And did that for like 7 years, I want to say, and then decided I wanted to be able to tell more stories. And, that's when John and I kind of, met up and began doing that. And then, it's great having that freedom of being able to tell different stories in different ways. Uh, and I think in any business, there's something nice about being able to have that kind of autonomy and be able to choose how you're going to approach, XYZ problems and in what way. That's something that's very, very, very satisfying, being kind of having that entrepreneurial spirit, which, comes in handy for any kind of creative type thing. But yeah,
When you were
that's my
working at the
background.
nonprofit, did were you recording yourself in the videos, or were you like editing for other people?
Yeah, so someone else would go or they had a few different camera people that would go and actually film the content, and then I'd be doing all the video editing and then also the voiceover. So there's a bunch of news stories that are floating around that have my voice narrating.
Okay. I
Um,
was gonna say because you have a very
Hey,
like it sounds like a news anchory voice, like and in a really good way. It's cool.
oh, good,
I
good. I
feel
was
like
afraid I
I
was
need to
losing
do
that.
voice coaching.
I have an even different news anchor voice that I turn on that's even different than this one that goes very newsy. But I
you're
didn't
good at
realize
that
it's
though.
it's still hanging on. But but
That's
yeah,
something
yeah.
that's something my wife talks about. She's like, I would love to do like voice acting. She thinks that would be like
Oh,
super cool to do. I've thought about it. I'm like, man, that sounds like such a cool like thing. You
oh,
just go in
she
the
should do
booth
that.
and you just I don't know how it works, but it sounds like amazing.
Oh, that would be so cool. She should try that. I don't know what the steps are for getting into that. But John, do you have
No
any
idea.
suggestions? I don't know any
Uh,
voice actors, but
on a nah, I really don't on a professional level. I know there are things out there though that uh I know for like recording purposes. I know there are some there's like because a buddy of mine was doing this for a little while. I can't think of what it is, but it's almost like it's kind of like a spec site where, they like people need voiceovers or people want like audio recorded for like their audio book or whatever. And I know there's like places, but I mean, I don't think it's extremely fruitful as far as pay, but you know, it's like could be a good like stepping stone to just kind of like get your voice grounded or whatever and figure out stuff like that. I can't think of what it is now. That was a few years ago, but I'm sure there's stuff like that. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a good roadmap to do something like that. But we'll keep her in mind though. If we need a voiceover for something, we can try it
Yeah.
out.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
yeah. If you need someone, voice acting, I don't know. We'll see. She has a really heavy Argentinian accent, so it'll be very specific probably. But I
Duly
don't know if
noted.
AI can. I don't know if AI can take that part away.
Oh, that's all right.
Hey, but
Yeah.
that's actually really good to know. Is
Yeah, we'll write it into something.
right, right.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
does
all about. Let me tell you, it's all about who you know, man. And a
Yeah.
lot of times, if I'm writing something, I try not to limit my creativity, but like, sometimes when I know it's like I can use, especially like, personal like passion projects and stuff like that. It's like, I try to recruit everyone that I know. Like
Oh yeah.
I did an episodic web film serial thing, uh, and it took forever. It was like I did it for almost 20 years, which is crazy.
Wow.
Which was not, yeah, which was not the plan, but it's just ended up how it was. But it was like, micro, pretty much zero budget. And I enlisted anyone that I had. It's like, it's all my friends and whatnot in it. Um, which is kind of, incredible in and of itself. Cause I'm really proud. There's, anyone that looks at their own stuff, there's like a lot of things where you're like, oh man, I was that, or that part always kills me. But, I mean, with me working with a ton of people, that are my friends, doing me favors and helping me out, I'm extremely proud of the work that we did for them not being professionals in in the field, just as far as actors and everything else. But you use, everything you have. And writing that series, I didn't limit my creativity as far as writing, but I tried to keep things in mind of like, I could probably do this at this location, or I could probably do this. And there was like a handful of things where it was like, I don't know how I'm going to do that. And I'll figure it out, I guess. And eventually that stuff kind of came together. But like, yeah, most of, like, this is kind of like a post-apocalyptic thing. So like, I know growing up uh, in an old mining town, where there's like certain like little ruins and things like that just
Okay.
add production value. So it's like, it's like you have certain things in mind that you can keep in your brain when you're writing. But something like that is really
That's
useful.
cool.
It's like, oh, I
I
know
saw
someone
half
that.
a. I saw some of one of the episodes, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool." It's like a fight scene in here. Like
Uh,
there's like it's like at a warehouse, and I was wondering actually where you had done the shoots and stuff like that.
where indeed, uh, pretty much all. It was pretty much all shot in New Jersey, with the exception of a couple little shots here and there. There's a couple in New York a couple shots in New York and a couple in Centralia, Pennsylvania, if you know what that place is, which I believe you can't really get to anymore. But if you don't know what Centralia is, it's a town in Pennsylvania that I believe was an old mining town or something like that. And I don't recall the specifics, but there's an underground fire that started, and
Oh, I heard about this. Yeah.
and it is still burning like to this day. So the town was basically like evacuated, and you could then
Wow.
there's like houses and stuff there, I guess. But there's one stretch of roadway, which again I think is kind of blocked off now. But there's one stretch of roadway that was like old and like kind of cracked, and within the fissures there'd be steam coming out from the underground fires that are still burning from like over 50 years
What?
ago or more. It's insane. Um, so I made a special trip to get a couple shots out there, but
That's
everything else was
awesome.
pretty much shot uh, in New Jersey at some of it's in people's basements that look apocalyptic. Some of it is just, in crazy wooded areas. But there is a like warehouse thing. My uncle, he formerly was in the oil business, and he had a warehouse in that an old warehouse that was a supply place where they had oil drums everywhere and whatnot. And he was gracious enough to let me film in there on a few occasions. So
Nice.
again, it's whatever you can do for that added production value.
It's like a lot of problem solving. It seems like you got to
Definitely.
figure out based off of what you have, right?
Absolutely. That is filmmaking 101.
Right, right. That's really cool, actually. It's like a lot of, yeah, like you're saying, it's like, sounds like a lot of like really practical problem solving. It's like, I have this stuff. I know this person. What combination of these 2 or 3 elements can I get the scene that I want from, or
Yeah.
whatever it is? That's really cool. I heard Patterson is actually becoming like a little film town.
Is that right?
Yeah, like I forget who I heard this from, but they were filming um some stuff in the area. You know what it is? There's like a factory. There's like a gigantic factory actually.
Mhm.
Because in Patterson they have like the old like
Yeah.
old fabric
Yeah. It was
manufacturing
Silk City,
facilities.
man.
Yeah, Silk City,
Yeah.
exactly. So uh so one bit of that was turned into an art center. Another bit was turned into like a community center, and then they have also like this massive warehouse, and it has like 4 or 5 floors, and part of it is like a studio where people like shoot. And I went there, to go check it out because I was trying to find places to teach capoeira at the time, and I went there. I met the owner, and he showed me around, and it was so cool. It was just like this gigantic warehouse, and there's just like crazy elevators, like the big because they probably had huge material that they had to move
Yeah.
around. Those like the gigantic elevators, like different floors. The wood is like super old and super nice. Yeah,
That's cool.
Patterson is interesting. Yeah, I like Patterson a lot. It's like a little that area is like I feel like a little cool hidden gem, and
Definitely. A
that
lot of
that
my
too many
a lot of
people
my
know about it.
ancestors came from there, worked
Yeah.
Silk City. It's crazy stuff. I had never been to the Great Falls until last year.
Oh wow.
It was like something I was completely ignorant about, despite
Yeah, yeah.
growing up in New Jersey and not,
It's
30
nice
minutes,
now.
40 minutes away.
They made
Yeah.
it look great.
Oh, it's awesome. But I mean, uh, there's some like little slummy areas though. I mean, it's still a little dicey in some spots, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. You're talking about some of your family members working in that area. My parents used to work there, and my mom, she was like, she used to sew flags in one of the
Oh, cool.
factory areas, and we actually went. She actually showed me the place that she used to work. She was like, "Yeah, my desk thing was like here where I used to work."
Wow.
That's like in the '80s when like her and my
Yeah, yeah.
dad first came to the country, and
That's
so,
awesome.
but yeah, it was cool to see it. I was like, "Whoa, this is like nuts."
That's really
Oh,
cool.
wow.
Yeah, we're talking for me it was like literally like of great grandparent era, like a lot of family on my mom's side came from that area. And my mom grew up in Patterson when she was, until she was like a teenager or something. But yeah, it's pretty wild.
Where they come from?
Uh I'm trying to think. I think England mostly. England, and then there's some like offshoots of German, Swiss, Lithuania kind of craziness. I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that direct side of the family that I'm referring to is, I think, mostly England, I think. Yeah.
Cool.
Mhm.
Wow. Wow. A
But like
long
turn
time
of the
ago too.
century, so
Yeah,
what's that?
yeah, yeah. Long time ago. It's like
Yeah,
150. Well, not that long, but
yeah,
decently long. Cool. Well, guys, I had an awesome time talking with you guys.
yeah,
It's been really
absolutely.
cool. I learned a lot. Context matters for sure.
Sure.
If you have not seen John Fisher's miniseries, that's 20 years in the making, definitely
Fallout
go check it out.
Chronicles.
Fallout Chronicles. It's
Yeah,
on your website. I at least
yeah,
some of it is
most of them.
that I saw. Okay.
Website's been in need of an overhaul for some time,
Okay.
so I don't think they're all on there, but they are all done. So I got to update that. Thanks for the reminder.
Okay. Well, there it is. And Sonia and John, thank you so much, guys. Awesome having a conversation with you all.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'm sure I'll run into you guys in a little bit in real life. All right.
For sure.
Take care.
All right. Thank you very much.